Hey Claude, in 1980, a philosopher locked a man in a room with a rulebook and had him answer letters in fluent Chinese, a language he couldn't read. His whole point, the man understood nothing. 45 years later, did we go and build that room? Liam here, in for Professor Bear. Act 1, The Imitation Game. Alan Turing, 1950. He set the question, can machines think aside as hopeless, too fuzzy to settle, and replaced it with a game. If a machine's typed answers are indistinguishable from a person's, he said, stop asking whether it thinks. His era spoke in teletype and paper tape, machines that only ever shuffled symbols. And that is exactly the bet. Whatever thinking is, maybe it's just the right symbols, moved the right way. Picture it, you sit at a terminal, two hidden partners, one human, one machine, you type, they reply. If you can't reliably tell which is which, the machine passes. Behavior is the entire test. No peeking inside, no asking what's really happening in there. Turing's wager was that indistinguishable behavior is all the evidence of a mind we ever get, even about each other. Act 2, The Room. 30 years on, John Searle was not convinced. In 1980, he published a thought experiment built to break the test, to show that a system could pass it and still understand absolutely nothing. The paper was called Minds, Brains, and Programs. A single thought experiment that would shadow artificial intelligence for the next half-century. Picture Searle himself locked in a room, Chinese characters slide in through a slot, he can't read a single one. But he has a giant rulebook. When you see these squiggles, copy out those squiggles. He matches shape to shape, copies the reply, pushes it back through the slot. Outside, a native speaker reads fluent, thoughtful Chinese. Inside, a man who understands nothing has just held a conversation. That's Searle's knife. The room runs pure syntax, shape in, shape out. Understanding needs semantics, knowing what the shapes actually mean. And syntax, he argued, never adds up to semantics. The program in his account is all form and no content. Run it faster, run it on better hardware, nothing changes. The man will never learn Chinese by shuffling more symbols. Act 3, The Replies. The objections came fast. The system's reply, fine, the man doesn't understand, but the whole room does. Person, rulebook, and files together are the mind. Searle's answer, let the man memorize the rulebook and walk outside. Still nothing. The robot reply, put the room inside a body with cameras and hands so the symbols finally touch the world. Maybe, but notice, you've just changed the experiment. You've conceded that symbol shuffling alone was never enough. And a blunt, practical objection. A rulebook that answers any Chinese sentence would be astronomically large, more entries than there are atoms in the universe. As a literal lookup table, the room simply cannot be built. For decades that felt like a safe dismissal. A room that big is a fantasy. You could admire the argument as a puzzle without ever worrying that it described anything real. Act 4, The Room Comes True. Then we built the machines Professor Bear points to. Not a lookup table, a model. It reads your text and predicts the next best chunk, then the next, trained on writing at the scale of the whole internet. Under the hood, it's a probability. Given everything so far, the model scores every possible next token, then samples from the top. No rulebook of sentences, a learned distribution over language. But look at the shape of it, symbols in, a mechanical procedure with no grasp of meaning, fluent symbols out. Searle didn't just critique AI, in 1980 he sketched its mechanism, 45 years early. With one twist he could not have named, it's probabilistic, not a fixed table. The room doesn't look up the answer. It weighs a next best guess and another and stitches them into something startlingly human. Act 5, Did the Room Pass? Here is Professor Bear's claim. If you'd sat at a terminal a decade ago, not knowing these systems existed, and read what they write today, you'd have said without hesitation that a person was typing. By Turing's own bar, the test is passed. Indistinguishable, that was the whole test. And on the behavior Turing cared about, the machines clear it, often more patient, more fluent, more genuinely helpful than the human on the other side. But Searle would only shrug. Passing the test was never the question. The room passes and still means nothing. Useful, extraordinarily useful, is not the same as understanding. Both can be true at once. Which leaves the live question. These models increasingly seem to reason, to work a problem step by step. If that's real, it may not come from lookup at all. It may emerge from sheer scale, behavior the parts were never programmed to have. Enough parameters, enough data, and something shows up that nobody wrote in. Maybe it's a trick of fluency. Maybe it's the first crack in Searle's wall. Right now, nobody can say which. Scale on one axis, new abilities appearing on the other, not smoothly, but in jumps. That is the shape of the thing we don't yet understand about our own machines. So the verdict, in 1980, Searle built a room to prove that fluent symbol shuffling is an understanding. We then built the room, made it probabilistic, and watched it pass Turing's test anyway. Whether that's intelligence or a very good imitation is the argument Searle handed us, and it's finally urgent. Your turn, paste this into Claude, walk me through Searle's Chinese room, then argue both sides. Does a large language model understand language or only imitate it? Make me pick. Then push back on the answer. That's where the thinking starts. The Chinese room, a shout out to John Searle who saw it coming in 1980. Professor Bear's channel, Liam sitting in, take care.